In the corridor, the queen's long strides moved forward. That appearance is quite something. In front of so many, yet you still reveal a face with such a dreadful scar. For a woman, there's nothing more humiliating, truly shameful. The old crone recalled William's demeanor when he bowed to the king, and the old man was very pleased with that attitude. And in her mind, the queen cursed her wretched bastard son. As planned, during the entire prayer session, no one came to Renie's side, as in front of the queen, no one dared to approach her, whom she openly despised. However, the old woman was afraid of the rumors that William was the emperor's illegitimate child, which had spread throughout the knightly order, and everyone looked at him with curious and expectant eyes. The more she thought about that bastard son, the tighter Key's old lady squeezed her trembling hands, due to anger. "That vile offspring can never become Emperor Alan again," she exclaimed, flinging open the door and barging into her son's room. Juncinia was surprised and hastily greeted, "Your Majesty." But all she heard was the queen's furious shout, This scent of censer again." With that, she swept the censer onto the floor. "I suffer headaches every day, because of this dreadful scent." Juncinia murmured softly, her heart pounding with fear. The queen continued to shout, "Speak. Just now. Why did your household do that?" She hadn't understood what was going on and quickly asked, "Yes. Why? Don't play dumb. Didn't you just offer your hand for him to kiss?" Juncinia, hearing this, was extremely frightened, remembering how happy she had been when that young man had reciprocated. She stammered, that. In her heart, she was extremely anxious. What should she do? If she said anything, she would be investigated if the scandal was discovered, and she would be punished. Or should she keep her mouth shut under the floor? Juncinia still looked very bewildered, unable to utter a word. Suddenly, the seductive image of William appeared in her mind, and a thought flickered. Yes, it's better to just apologize and ask for forgiveness. Cinia replied, "I'm afraid that the high-ranking nobles would think poorly if a member of the royal family behaved improperly towards you just because he dislikes them. I apologize if I overstepped, Your Majesty." The more she spoke, the more she infuriated the queen. "Of course, you overstepped. What nonsense are you spouting?" With that, she kicked the hand holding the perfume bottle. Cinia winced as she touched her hand, still listening to the queen's curses. "Do you think our dignity can be damaged by that? It's ridiculous that you're only thinking of yourself when you're just a servant. Didn't you fire my son's butler? For the honor of the royal family, you shouldn't become the lover of the crown prince." Her face twisted like a demon, growling angrily, "In the end, Michael's foot became like this, isn't it because of you?" Michael, upon hearing Mother mention his twisted foot, felt his pride being humiliated. As for Juncinia, she blushed and felt extremely embarrassed. She was about to continue humiliating her, but Michael shouted, "Stop it, my body is already weak, and you're making me dizzy like this?" She hesitantly replied to Michael, "I did it for you." He turned purple, yelling loudly, "That wretched bastard! Anyway, on the last day of the Grand Divine Festival, he will make a vow with me in front of everyone." Feeling that the queen had listened to him, his voice softened. "You yourself said, wait until I become emperor, when I ascend, I will kill that wretched Renie. Before that, I will strengthen your protection, so don't worry." Queen Key gently embraced him, "Oh Michael, my beloved son." His lips murmured softly, "I always feel very grateful to you." Then he turned to instruct his new wife, Juncinia, "This afternoon you will meet with the abbots of the Hungsi shrine, right? You must be tired, so you should go down first." Cinia bowed respectfully, "Yes, Your Highness, Your Majesty." Then, Michael whispered again to his mother, as always, he only thought of himself when his wife was humiliated. Cinia quietly walked down the long, dark corridor. "It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. No matter what, I know that actually, because Michael is the crown prince, that's why I seduced him." Cinia smiled through tears when she saw her beloved standing there in the garden full of flowers and warm sunshine, the name Willem rising like the only hope and solace for her. Cinia hugged him tightly, feeling pain when thinking of her wretched husband. If he weren't the crown prince, I would never have slept with someone like Michael. Willem asked with a raised voice, why suddenly? She, jealous, replied, don't act as if you belong to another woman in front of everyone, you belong to me. Renie continued to whisper, will you really make the vow of chivalry? Willem, hesitating, replied yes, confirming the queen's words. He opened his arms behind him and silently resolved, I have already taken something from Renie. The first time is difficult. From the second time onwards, it will be easy. Renie looked up and whispered, I will do that so you won't cling to other women anymore. On the third day of the grand divine festival, the nobles gathered at the shrine of the goddess prophet Hungsi. But men couldn't enter the shrine of the goddess, because Hungsi hated men. Therefore, only priestesses, women, could enter the prayer hall. Is what Johanna heard true? Renie turned back and asked. Her friend replied, you're still pretending. This time, not only do you have the title of Grand Sovereign, but you also have love. Don't sugarcoat it, Johanna. This made Renie bristle and flush with embarrassment. What are you talking about? Come on, let's go. Look at my former mistress running away in shame. Johanna became even more amused, I heard he's a very young and brave knight, isn't he? Then she deliberately whispered in Renie's ear, he still looked very handsome just now. The more she angered, the faster she walked, if you keep talking nonsense like that, I'll leave you behind. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm coming with you, Johanna confessed, I'm glad to see you seem to be getting along well with that knight. Renie embarrassedly replied, I'm not sure how things are between us anymore. Johanna was surprised, what? Why? She hesitated to explain, because I've always seen him as my little brother. I always felt like I raised him like my own son. He hasn't even found a good master. Johanna was speechless, it seems like you're not being honest. Do you think so? Well, let's not talk about this anymore. But he's a brave knight, Renie blushed. Brave, huh? What do you mean? Yeah, just that he's quite cute. Johanna sighed and shook her head, my dear, you're really falling for him, Renie exclaimed softly, what? Her friend continued, men as handsome as him are great, but we can still leave a guy like that. However, if you find a mature and charming man, it means you're completely in love with him. Johanna took her hand and seemed very excited, congratulations, Your Highness. Remember to invite me to the wedding. Renie blushed and exclaimed, stop talking nonsense. Johanna just laughed mischievously at her embarrassment. The prayer session quickly ended because Johanna had slipped a large sum of money to the high priest to avoid being detained and subjected to flattery. Renie paid no attention to her friend's words, but pondered the goddess of vengeance Hani on the antler the lady always carried. There were fruits on it, and this type of fruit symbolized true revenge, because true revenge was as sweet and tempting as fruit. Renie folded her hands in prayer, oh, goddess of vengeance Hani, please hear my prayer, please grant revenge upon those who led my father to his untimely demise. Whether you accept this prayer or not, I want them to receive the sweet fruit of your vengeance. In the mythology of the empire, there are 4 gods representing the 4 seasons. All are known as the children of Hani, except Ant, the god of winter, who is the only one not born of Hani. On the way back after leaving the child to Altia, Hani encountered a boy, who turned out to be Ant, the son of the man who betrayed Hungsi. Despite being the son of an enemy, Hungsi felt pity for the abandoned child and took him back to her castle, to raise him. This deprived Ant of all his wealth, and he even took on the form of Ant, the god of winter, in mythology. Hani gave birth to Tsin, the god of summer. Strangely, when remembering this story, Renie thought of Willem. That's the painting I didn't bother to look at when I was still the crown prince. I miss you, Willem. After the prayer session ended, Johanna said goodbye to her former mistress and went home. Seeing that Willem seemed unhappy with her, Renie stood beside him, arms crossed, scolding, but his expression clearly indicated opposition. As they walked along the corridor, Renie reproached Willem, aren't you going to say anything? You've been silent for so long. Willem hesitantly spoke up, that maid knows about Renie's past that I don't know about. I envy her a lot. Renie turned back to look at him, only to see Willem frowning and blushing, looking away, as if he could still faintly hear the sound of his pounding heart. Willem, maybe think like this, we can stay together like this, because there's a part of my life that you don't know about. I married Michael, but he completely betrayed me. Even the escort Johanna introduced threatened my life at that time. Who was there for me? Willem looked pensively at the girl in front of him as she implied about him. Renie took his hand, when I desperately needed someone, who was there for me? Willem blushed, replying, it was me. That's right, Willem. Later, I'll be the Renie you know. My face now is still the Renie you know. Come on, are you still jealous of Johanna? Unable to contain his happiness, Willem trembled, asking her, can I kiss you? Before he could finish his sentence, Willem's heart seemed to want to leap out of his chest as Renie suddenly kissed his lips. It was the first time she saw Willem's agitated appearance. He blushed, asking nervously, is your wound fully healed? Suspiciously, Renie asked, what are you talking about, what about my wound? Willem blushed even more, you really don't know, that's why you asked. Looking at her robust figure and foolish expression, Willem struggled to reply, I hope you're not in pain anymore. Really? Of course. I wouldn't lie about your safety, would I? He gently kissed her cheek and whispered, I like you, Renie, I really like you. Just a little more, as his hand slipped onto her thigh, Renie quickly hugged his face, Willem, don't say that. Otherwise, she blushed, hesitated, I feel very embarrassed. I feel like I'm relying too much on you. Willem felt like he was on cloud nine. Renie, you don't know how happy I am when you lean on me. He hugged her tightly and whispered, if it's for you, I can do anything, even if it means lying or doing disgusting things. Seeing the deeply enamored guy, she couldn't bring herself to tell him not to do disgusting things, as all her thoughts at the moment were blown away by him. I love you, Renie, only you forever. On the last day of the grand festival, people would share food of the gods. Many nobles from the empire attended this feast on the first floor. Blonde hair like sunlight fluttered in the wind. Renie observed everything from above while recalling the embarrassing scene from yesterday. They were about to do it if it weren't for her behaving like an innocent girl. Suddenly, Farhan approached with a glass of wine, seeming like today the emperor would declare Willem as his own blood. Just now they were here together, but they had gone to a private room. Sipping his wine, Farhan sighed, what a pity. If I had known he was a prince, I would have had him marry my sister. Renie was speechless, say those things in front of the emperor. Farhan chuckled, oh, I'm just kidding. Anyway, you know that Corona used his lineage to negotiate with us, right? Usually, such deals lead to arranged marriages, but Corona refused outright, for obvious reasons. Do you know what he said? Farhan deliberately mimicked Willem's cold expression, there's a woman I want to be with. Hearing this, Renie startled, blushed, turned away, and wondered, did Willem really say that? Farhan continued, I'm the son of Count Glencia's steward, so I have a clear way of evaluating people. At first, I thought he was just a young man struggling with his first love, but it's not that simple. Renie tacitly understood his intention, the young master of Glenna was now trying to drive a wedge between her and Willem. Farhan persisted, Your Majesty, we are all friends with Mr. Mystery. Would he do this? If Mr. Mystery were offering you a vast territory, he would have discussed borrowing soldiers with you beforehand. He wouldn't leave you indebted like this. Mentioning Mystery made her heart beat incessantly with longing. Yes, I also know that. If it were Mystery. The emperor entered after the herald's loud call, followed by a handsome, impeccably dressed young man, Willem Corona. As he walked in, the nobles around immediately buzzed with discussions. Oh my, is the rumor true? How can this be, will the crown prince's status be affected? Juncinia Canaria noticed her and glanced at Renie provocatively. On this side, Renie still didn't understand the significance of that action, while Farhan remained composed. reminding her, I hope you'll be careful. A servant who always keeps secrets from his master is not a good servant. The emperor announced enthusiastically, Behold, Willem Corona, my second son. All his sins shall be forgiven. The old king raised his hand high and shouted, Henceforth, his name shall be Willem Allen. Amidst the cheers of the old king, Farhan continued to turn to remind her, Remember, a man who keeps secrets from his lover cannot be a good man. Be cautious with him. She fully understood, I know. The fact that I am the son of the emperor, I still can't say, leave it for later. A man who keeps secrets from his lover cannot be a good man. Every word of Farhan's and the memories with Willem rushed back and intertwined with each other. She widened her eyes, denying, No, Farhan, Glenna was wrong, Willem is just a bit clumsy. He's like an untamed wild animal. If I didn't know that face, I might have misunderstood him. I'm the only one who can embrace a child like him. I'm the only one who can indulge Willem like this, and that's the only way I can take responsibility for what I've done to him. She said to herself firmly. But now her whole body was trembling so much, while the grand hall continued to echo the king's words. Within Renie's heart, she quietly wondered, Am I shaking? At this moment, the old king looked at Willem and appeared very pleased. He exuded the demeanor of a proper prince, and the old king could let go of all worries about his successor. Suddenly, Michael stepped forward with his cane and boldly spoke, Well, your majesty, I request that my younger brother take the oath of knighthood right here. The old king was taken aback, What? I will accept that request, Willem said, then turned to a man and urged, Kindly, prepare it. Willem Allen, the old king's veins bulged as he roared, I've just declared you a prince. If you take the oath of knighthood, you will have to renounce your right to the throne immediately. Michael retorted nonchalantly, That's what he wants, isn't it? The old king yelled in anger, Michael Allen. This shocking incident caused a stir among the nobles in the hall. Willem Allen will be loyal to the crown prince? Then will the position of the crown prince ultimately not change? Watching him kneel to take the oath of knighthood, Renie felt very satisfied. Willem, now you'll avenge me against Michael. I've given up direct revenge with these hands, and let you do it for me. Seeing her beloved young man drifting away, Renie felt extremely uneasy. Though she couldn't bear this, she still tried to convince herself to trust him. I have to witness him complete this, my revenge with this very sword. As the oath was concluded, Michael reached out his hand in front of him to pledge absolute loyalty. Later that evening, Renie finally got to return her father's remains. She collapsed onto the coffin. This saddened Willem deeply. Renie, seeing him right beside her, she quickly asked, Willem, when did you arrive? Just now. The old king didn't let him leave, because he was very angry. He said the body was found by him, and scolded me for doing wrong, Renie grumbled. Deceptive, he even pretended to ignore the fact that I was attacked. Then she suddenly changed the subject, Willem, I'm planning to temporarily return to Leyden. You'll have to work hard as a knight under Michael, so our time together will be limited. Willem appeared anxious. Renie, can you give me a month? Fine. But you have a lot to do. Embracing education as a prince, and learning to govern a new territory, Willem insisted. Just 1 month is enough. Surprising, isn't it? Just 1 month? Our Willem is quite talented, isn't he? I can rest assured and return now, Renie expressed. Willem, he turned away, reluctant but yielding to her wishes. If you're really tired, you can return to Leyden first. But Willem didn't let her go, holding her tighter. Renie comforted, even if I wanted to leave, I couldn't, because the prince needs an advisor. And thinking about you not knowing what to do amidst those arrogant nobles, I feel like you're a child abandoned in the street. Playfully, do you still see me as a child, Renie? Willem reacted, embarrassed, turning away. I've told you before. If you're tired, go back first. Seeing Willem's sulking face, she teased him even more. All right then, I'll go, Willem, blushing, Renie called out. Only hearing her joyful laughter echoing throughout the room, I've considered Willem my lover, but the one who has given me love. Both have left me one after the other. His son has stabbed a dagger into my heart. Willem, within him, Renie whispered softly, will you still love me until you kill Michael? Willem became solemn. Renie, don't you trust me? She hastily nestled into his chest. Oh, nothing. I was just rambling. But still, I have to return to Leyden because this time I want to bid farewell to my father myself, she teased. Don't tell me you're jealous of my father too. As she finished her sentence, Renie was surprised by his subsequent action, blushing as he slipped something into her delicate hand. Willem, when she opened it, she was surprised to find it was the amorous card. If you're worried that my love will grow cold, I'll dispel that thought immediately. Renie widened her eyes in surprise. The amorous card? Take this, he chuckled softly, who knows when it might come in handy. At that moment, Renie didn't realize that the anxiety she carried within her was so small that she thought it was just a minor scratch and could heal on its own. But if that anxiety were too great, it could even cause damage to her heart. If she had known that, she wouldn't have overlooked such a big wound. On a cool evening, Cinia and Willem met again in the palace garden. I apologize for being late. I had to sneak out, so there was no other way. Now I'm quite famous in the palace. Willem looked so cheerful that Cinia felt very annoyed that he had to endure the torment of that old man until dawn, while the one she loved knew nothing at all. Cinia gritted her teeth in frustration. Apologizing doesn't do anything. You made me wait, didn't you? But a second after she regained her composure, she noticed a red mark on Willem's cheek from the pain. Cinia whimpered, I'm sorry for this, her face showing regret. However, within her, a sense of excitement swirled. That hand had moved on its own, and Willem smirked faintly. Cinia, are you eager for it? Her heartbeat intensified as Willem hit the mark. Want to put a leash around my rigid neck and turn me into a dog who only listens and begs for you? Cinia broke into a sweat. That's not it. Willem continued to whisper into her ear, aren't you thrilled to see my cheek turn red from being hit? And do you feel regret too, for not being able to use those nails to scratch your face and leave some beautiful scars? Isn't that right? Willem indifferently replied, that's right. Hurry up, as he bent down and obeyed without hesitation. Cinia's heart pounded with a mixture of excitement and horror. What do you think? Very obedient, but contrary to her expectations, Willem covered his hand and refused to kiss her directly on the lips. Why? Why are you doing this again? Willem spat out chilling words. Selfish woman, don't you really know? If you want me to kiss your foot, you'll have to go to hell. Only then will these lips touch you. Even if it's just a minor scratch, if it keeps accumulating and accumulating, then one day it will. At the palace of the Leyden Grand Territory. Meanwhile, Renie was struggling with a pile of paperwork upon her return. Mrs. Sarah, by her side, was eager to know if Willem had received his title and returned to Leyden. But another question from her made her extremely embarrassed. So, are you going to get married? Renie immediately blushed and found herself in an awkward situation. Sarah intentionally teased her, but she could only cover her mouth and then hastily leave the room. Meanwhile, another servant came to report, and the Lady Chancellor breathed heavily, her face extremely panicked, and she said, I need to return to the capital immediately. Meanwhile, behind the curtain, a pale and shrunken hand appeared in the cold coffin. Michael lay motionless, in eternal sleep. The one who discovered his body was a servant. As usual, he came to knock on the door and brace himself to hear Michael's grumpy words in the early morning, but received no response. Upon entering the room, he realized there was a body lying on the bed. Back to Willem, after being suspected of the prince's death, he was detained. However, he was later released and taken to the palace. The queen, after losing her son, became frantic and released him. Willem only left behind a remark, the prince must be very happy, right? The queen asked, huh? What? Willem wondered if his mother who gave birth to him loved him so much. Upon hearing that, Mrs. Key became even more furious, you disrespectful brat. The soldiers exclaimed, oh. Your Majesty, please take her back to the palace, quickly. This incident caused a stir in public opinion. They heard that the servants and chefs in the prince's palace were tortured to the point of being unable to move. And the queen not only killed the Corona family but also the families whose daughters had one night stands with the emperor. It was also believed that the Leden Grand Lord was attacked because of her actions. Therefore, her son's death was also the retribution she had to bear. The truth was that just a few weeks ago, Willem had knelt before Michael and sworn never to covet the golden throne. But how contradictory it was, he had now become the new crown prince. At the capital palace, Renie had traveled a long way to get here and was stopped by the guards. "No one is allowed in here, please turn back." Renie took something out of her pocket and said, "But if you know what I'm carrying, you'll have to step aside." Once inside, Renie hurriedly searched for him. "Hurry up, where are you?" When she saw him, Renie couldn't help but be stunned. It had only been a few weeks, and Willem had changed so much. "Willem," she exclaimed as she rushed into his arms. "Oh, Willem, what's going on? Did you fulfill that oath for me in vain?" Willem was overjoyed to be embraced by her. He gently comforted her. "It's not your fault. I miss you so much, Renie. And of course, it was wrong for you to leave me behind and return to Leden." Renie angrily shouted, "What time is it now that you can still joke around? Michael is dead." She had already heard the news, and he had been imprisoned in the dungeon. The queen had come to find him. All the news came pouring in at once. "I rushed here as fast as I could through the glass gate without bringing any luggage. If it weren't for Mark, I don't know what I would have become." "Quickly explain." Willem just hugged her tightly and kissed her silky hair, then looked at her with affection, blushing with happiness. "What are you doing?" Renie hadn't finished her sentence when Willem locked her lips and enjoyed this sweet happiness. The onlookers behind them could only stand silently. "Ahem." Mark's voice made Willem come to his senses. "I think you should leave." A trembling soldier replied, "My duty is to protect this palace." Another interjected, "It's useless. The Grand Lord has the amorous card. How do you think she got in when the entire palace is sealed?" As they left, Willem held on to her even tighter. Renie pleaded urgently, "Stop it," but Willem continued to advance. "Stop, huh? I'm not in the mood for that now," Renie pushed him away. "I want to talk to you." "Aren't you happy?" "About what?" "He's dead." Renie's voice was gloomy. "It's not like I killed him, what's there to be happy about? Besides, he died in his sleep without knowing anything." She thought to herself, "That bastard is gone peacefully. The goddess of revenge, Hani, didn't even give me the chance to taste the sweet taste of revenge. Why?" Seeing her daughter so downcast, Willem smiled gently. "Renie, wait for me a moment." "What?" "Follow me, I want to show you something." With that, he reached out his hand to lead her. In a moment, time seemed to repeat itself. The Renie of that moment trusted him, so she followed without refusal. They walked down a passage in the palace, called the Redwood Passage, with a few guards following to escort them. Seeing her being cautious, Willem reassured her, "This is my servant, you don't need to worry." Renie asked incredulously, "Aren't they royal knights? They have served in the royal court for years, and they're just guards?" Willem chuckled, "Ah, I mimicked you a bit, like the financial manager you hired." "I did the same." At that moment, Renie couldn't immediately understand the meaning behind his words. But soon after, the truth began to unfold as they walked towards a prison cell, and his lover, Canaria, behind the iron bars, joyfully exclaimed, "Finally, you're here, my love." Renie's expression was one of shock, and June Sinia felt the same. "Ah, wait, is it you, Renie?" Sinia became anxious. "Willem, my love. Why are you here with that woman? I've been so worried here, I should have killed that bitch sooner." Willem coldly retorted, "Don't misunderstand. I'm here because you wanted to talk directly to my master." Renie felt a chill down her spine, her hand tightly held by Willem's grip, making her unable to move. Why hadn't she considered it? The incident in Leyden wasn't the only time Willem schemed behind her back. Renie directly questioned Willem. Explain, why is the prince consort in prison? Cinia interjected. Ah, right, you don't know about it, do you? During your time in Leyden, Willem kept the truth hidden. Willem, my adorable coward, if you're afraid, let me speak for you. She continued speaking arrogantly, even in prison. Renie Devlin, I've always felt guilty towards you. I stole your position and caused you unintentional pain. Renie felt nauseous and disgusted hearing this. She continued, but I also suffered greatly by wearing the prince consort's crown, something I never wanted, and faced ridicule and humiliation. I've lived in shame all this time. As Cinia spoke, her body trembled with jealousy. In those days of hell, the thing I wanted most was only one person. And even that person belonged to you. Her face contorted with jealousy as she looked at Renie like an enemy. Renie seemed to understand. June Cinia, so you. Yes, I killed Michael Alash. All the pieces of the puzzle had now been put together. Willem had used her, knowing June Cinia loved him, so she willingly took the oath of the Chevalier. Renie couldn't help but feel astonished. That's because Renie looked at the guy and whispered to herself, because he's also reincarnated like me. Willem remained silent until now, then he spoke. Renie, let me tell you an interesting story. In my past life, I was that woman's prisoner. She strangled me and ordered me to kneel under her feet, then beat me until I passed out. As he spoke, June Cinia seemed to go mad, calling Willem's name as if wanting to satisfy the savage urge rising within her. In their past lives, Renie had used it to hire Ather as Leyden's financial manager, and he had done the same, using past life memories to manipulate June Cinia as a tool for revenge. Cinia was horrified as he crushed her hand. Renie, too, couldn't help but be horrified by that cruelty. But Willem remained indifferent, then unleashed a cruel smile like never before. June Cinia's scream echoed throughout the dark dungeon. Ah! Right after that, Renie was furious. Willem, so you've been deceiving me all along. Renie pushed him away and shouted, I trusted you. Why did you do such a terrible thing without discussing it with me? Why? Willem simply reminded her of her own words in their past life, people are not tools. That scoundrel didn't know that. You said that, you taught me that. He smirked and looked straight into her eyes. Do you remember? Those words changed my life ever since. Renie felt all prickly. She couldn't digest all of this yet, trembling as she asked, so, what are you saying? Is this like an act of revenge for your past life? We thought you did it for our future, Willem, or should I say, Lord Win Corona. He widened his eyes as she mentioned his past life's name. I can't understand how your own mouth could promise loyalty to Michael. Willem quickly pulled her back and yelled, stop it, please. Don't treat me like a stranger like that. I only have you, Renie. I'm only loyal to you, Renie. This is revenge for you. He held her tightly and whispered softly, this is revenge for you, for those who betrayed your love. I want to make them feel the same betrayal, pain, and suffering from the person they love. He hugged her tightly and whispered, because you took my soul with you, because you took my soul, so give me yours, because I love you. She stood there and listened to everything he said, her mind swirling with one thought. Why is it that whenever you say, I love you, my first feeling is always fear? But at this moment, I suddenly have a thought, the one who has been trembling with fear all this time isn't me, it's you, you've replaced me in everything. Is that right, Willem? Seeing them cuddling, Cinia felt like falling into a pit of despair. Seeing the man she loved holding another woman in his arms, compared to the disgusting touch he laid on her, June Cinia felt strangely. The man she bitterly hated turned out to be the lifeline that helped her survive, while the man she longed for day and night turned out to be the deadly trap set up. Oh, don't misunderstand, I never loved you. I just used you, the guy said to June Cinia, as if telling her with his whole body, die alone in that cold prison. After a long delusion, she caught sight of the spear standing in the corner. Willem, alright, look over here, she continued, coldly. Because you don't understand, that's why. True love is hard to recognize, so I'll teach you how to recognize it, even when you yourself don't know. Hearing her words, Willem jolted and turned around, only to see June Sinia holding the spear, aiming it at his heart. Her mouth remained cold, her eyes wild. It's losing the one you love, and I hope you'll suffer to the extreme. Renie quickly shouted, wait, princess consort. Don't. She yelled, I don't mean to harm myself with my death. I will kill the man who doesn't know that you love me, the man who doesn't know my sincere heart. Renie kept trying to stop her, princess consort, stop. Sinia laughed madly, tears streaming down her face, Willem, remember me for the rest of your life. Sinia Canaria is your destiny. Seeing the gruesome scene before him, a soldier left a surprising comment, is she going to end her own life like this? Willem replied, so much the better. Prepare the antidote. I understand now. Both of you, please go back first. Willem spoke, turning back to see her sitting slumped on the floor. As Renie's voice rang out, she flinched slightly. Sorry, I'll come back, he said softly, lifting her into his arms and gently comforting her. This filthy place isn't suitable for you. His voice made her feel like she was being mesmerized by a demon. Exiting the secret dungeon, Willem brought out a basin of water to wash her feet. As he tenderly cared for her feet, he whispered, I know you want to rest, but we can't yet. There's one more thing left to do. Renie repeated, trembling, one more thing left to do? The cold sweat made her already chilled body even more frozen with horror. Although I wanted the servant girl to boil some hot water, the situation doesn't allow for it. Because I think using warm water right now would only make things worse. Renie thought of June Sinia's horrifying scene earlier and felt scared of the man in front of her. She wondered what even more dreadful thing he intended to show her. But Willem just left with an innocent smile, heading towards the soldiers discussing something. Good. Have you brought that thing? A soldier replied obediently, everything is ready as you requested. Willem simply said, all right, prepare to go. Hearing this, Renie's face turned pale. Wait, Willem. What do you mean by prepare? What is it? She shouted in anger, are you planning something behind my back again? Speak up, I have limits too, I can't take it anymore. Willem calmly replied, we have to finish your revenge. Renie puzzled, revenge? You mean Michael Allen? He's already dead. Willem still maintained his cheerful demeanor in the face of her twisted questions. I just learned that the princess consort killed him. What are you planning to do now? As he spoke, the footsteps of the soldiers blocked her throat. As soon as she saw the coffin, Renie recognized it. Before her mind could comprehend, Willem apologized, I'm sorry. I was planning to let him beg for mercy in front of you. I was planning to prolong his life. I was planning to show you his trembling and screaming like that woman, but there isn't much time. He hugged her tightly and whispered, look, imagine the queen's reaction when she sees her stolen son's body. She softly called Willem's name as she saw the villain resting peacefully before her. Yes, Renie, Willem helped her grasp the Reflin family sword and aimed it straight at the man, even if it's revenge like this, I hope you'll be satisfied. Michael may be dead, but he looks as if he's in a deep sleep. After a moment of silence, Renie smirked and looked at him excitedly, Renie Reflin, you impertinent brat. If you don't like that, then hand over the neck of his, Michael Allen. I have to feed it to the dogs to relieve this resentment. How dare you? Renie Reflin. Every fragment of memory about Michael, when he was being stabbed by her, rushed back. He had gone mad, but how calm his face was now. Ah. Royal physician, quickly grab her. Do you dare to stab me? Renie Reflin pointed the sword at him and laughed lightly, her laughter echoing throughout the room as she looked at the wretch, Willem, for the first time in my life, I find it amusing. How? Michael Allen, the vile fool. After all his arrogance, in the end, this is his fate. How sudden the situation has changed. You fool, you broke off our engagement just to die like this? Why? You pushed my father into the war, drove me to a cold snowy mountain, didn't you? Renie continued to laugh wildly. Queen, you played with my father's pawn, and now your son's body is in my hands. I'm wondering what to do to retaliate. Should I behead him or dismember him? Should I send his head to that woman so she spends her life searching for the rest of his body? No, maybe I should send the headless body so she remembers her son's beautiful face forever. Renie choked back tears, suddenly remembering the beautiful memories with Michael. From now on, you are my wife, so hold my hand and come with me. Give me your hand. Michael used to be such a gentle child. Thinking of this, she couldn't bring herself to harm him anymore, to dip her hands into this dirty blood. Willem exclaimed, you are truly compassionate. She turned away. I know, Willem, please bury that coffin somewhere unknown. Renie, hold on, he pulled her hand back. I heard that Duke Reflin passed away after falling from his horse, didn't he? So what? She asked, surprised. He was an invincible general. Do you think he really died from falling off his horse? Renie suddenly hesitated. What do you mean? Willem revealed, in my previous life as Michael Allen's aide, one day when he was drunk, he boasted about all his accomplishments. It's true. When Allen's blood always urged me to move forward, so I took care of that old man. I'm the prince of this kingdom. How dare he interfere in my affairs? You're wondering how I got rid of Duke Reflin, aren't you? Willem held her tightly and recounted the details of what he had said. Renie's madness began to flare up. Do it, fulfill your long-awaited wish. If stabbing that wretch's leg could make you forget, then I've done it long ago. Do it, seek true revenge. Renie rushed forward and plunged the cold blade straight into the prince's body. She screamed his name in a frenzy. Michael Allen. Revenge has been sought so many times. The revenge I've always longed for has helped me live, helped me endure. Revenge. Outside, the sun had risen, and Renie's body was covered in the filth and grime of her enemies. Willem gently handed her a handkerchief and urged her to rest, but Renie suddenly rushed to him and left the sword behind. Renie passionately kissed him. Renie, I'm very happy, but first, let's deal with the wound on your hand. Before he could finish his sentence, she kissed him again passionately. Despite Renie's filthy appearance, he didn't hesitate to reciprocate her fervor. Suddenly, Renie let him go, and then bit his lip. Don't resist any more, just hold me, quickly. If you hesitate, I won't forgive you. Willem blushed and furrowed his brow, then pushed her onto the bed. Renie, you can't escape anymore. Michael, my enemy, I will use my torn hands to embrace my love, Renie thought to herself. The coffin lying there had completely disappeared from her mind. Come on, choose. Will you accept my deal or stay with me as you have always been? I will show you greater trust in anything I do, Renie. He took back control, and thus, the agreement was fulfilled. They spent the whole afternoon wrapped in each other's arms. In his heart, Renie knew that the Queen had openly arrested June Sinia for the crime of killing her son without evidence. So, she also had to take responsibility for his death. I think about the Queen, she really paid too much for revenge. I'm sorry, Willem suddenly blushed, for that, because I spoke of love with another woman. Renie sighed, it's okay, thanks to that, I was able to kill Michael as I desired. But Willem still cared about it. I apologize for letting him die at someone else's hands. She turned to Willem, if you feel sorry for that, then tell me about your past life. Tell me things I don't know. Willem happily looked at his daughter. Really? It's a long story, you won't get bored, promise. I began to recount memories.